Hey, it's your favorite mindset coach, Marissa, and I am so grateful that you are here today to join me. So, whether you are listening on my podcast, Teacher Mindset with Marissa E., or you are hanging out with me on my YouTube channel, Teacher_Mindset, you are going to get so much value. So, if you are a teacher, were a teacher, want to be a teacher, know a teacher, this is the podcast for you because what do we do here? We focus on helping teachers. That is the goal. I was a teacher. Now I'm a mindset coach for teachers. And I find people in the education space, whether they are teachers or were teachers or have some other place in the education space, to help you save time, energy, practice self-love, avoid burnout, look at your worth, and just navigate regular challenges that teachers are encountering today. So I would encourage you to subscribe, especially on the podcast. Put a like in there so that we can push up in the algorithm because the higher we are, the more teachers we can help. That is my ultimate goal, is to bring love and positivity to so many teachers out there. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, then without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, teachers and parents. So in this episode, I'm so excited because we are talking to Cara Zeles, a teacher, author, and founder of World of Little Dude, which is a social and emotional learning program for children. So Cara, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. The sun is shining, and that always brings me joy.
Yeah, me too. I love the sun for sure. So tell us before we get into World of Little Dude a little bit, like where did your teaching journey actually begin?
Sure. So I grew up in Australia, and I always had, I don't know, a desire to work with kids, a connection with children, and I guess a passion. And so I trained to be an elementary school teacher, and I taught fourth grade, and I absolutely loved it. And then when I moved to America, um, I decided to retrain to become a Montessori teacher
Hmm.
and work with early childhood students. I don't know, like New York is like a really tough market to navigate, even as a teacher, even though they say, oh, we need teachers, like there's a lot of hoops you have to jump
Oh,
through. So
really?
yes, yes. So like in terms of getting certified by the state, and then like you really need your master's degree. So there was just a lot of barriers to entry, and I really wanted to be back in the classroom. So I discovered this amazing Montessori course. It was at a wonderful school, as they were a teaching school as well as a school on the Upper West Side. And I just fell in love with the philosophy, with the people, and yeah, it really set me on a different journey in terms of like where I was going in regards to my profession. And then at the same time, I started doing volunteer work with my dog, Little Dude. We joined the Good Dog Foundation as a therapy dog team. And we started going into schools and hospitals and kind of what I think is like a little bit hidden from like everyday society. So I was working at places like Charter School for Autism, another school with like kids with severe developmental delays, pediatrics ICU, ACS, which is the Children's Services. And it's just like a whole range of meeting a whole range of children that you wouldn't tend to meet in a neurotypical classroom and school. And it opened up my eyes. And also, I had these really amazing experiences doing dog therapy. And it kind of dawned on me that even though little dude and I weren't changing these kids' situations for a
Mhm.
brief moment in time in their day, we were adding joy and giving kindness. And I really wanted to teach that idea to the students in my early childhood classroom. So I started to bring little dude into the classroom. And
Oh,
I was
amazing.
yeah, so it just gave me this aha moment of wow, like little dude's a really engaging teaching tool. Kids are so curious, they're excited, they're engaged. And I thought, oh, okay, this is something. And at the same time, I was thinking, we teach ABCs, one, two, threes in a really explicit way in early childhood. why aren't we teaching kindness, manners, empathy, all those good foundational skills that you want your children to be learning? Why aren't we teaching that in an explicit way? And that led me on the path of exploring social and emotional learning. And 9 years or 10 years ago, when I discovered SEL, it wasn't like it was today. It was kind of in its infancy in a way.
Yeah,
And
I
I
was going
did
to
this.
ask you, like, where was SEL back then? Was it just sort of something you might get professional development on, or was it that people were just starting to talk about it, or how was it? Was it even in the schools? I didn't. For me, it wasn't
Yeah,
10 years ago.
yeah, it definitely wasn't in schools. It wasn't a buzzword. I don't even know how I stumbled upon it, but I discovered this amazing social and emotional learning program that was run from Colorado University. It was online, and it was a professor from all the top schools in America. So Harvard, Yale, Columbia, you name it. They
Wow.
had professors talking about the benefits of SEL and how it positively impacts academic learning and, of course, social and emotional growth. And I thought, wow, okay, so this is my thing now. I want to teach SEL, and I want to use my dog as the vehicle. And so I decided to write a book series and lesson plans to go along with the books. And I started teaching that in classrooms. And that's how Big World of Little Dude began.
Wow. And okay, so what did you have sort of at that moment that you realized this is what you were meant to do? Was it like an intuition that you sort of had inside of you, or was it that it was like an aha moment? Because you know how sometimes people they don't listen to that voice that's saying this is what you should do. Right.
Mm.
So can you pinpoint like what was the big moment that happened where you're like, this is what I'm doing?
Well, I think it was several moments. So it was bringing the dog into that classroom for that very
Mhm.
initial time. Like, I won't forget that. And I was like, oh, wow, like kids are so engaged and into this. And so that was one moment. And then I was like, oh, I'll write a book about it. That'll be fun. Let's write a book. And then my partner, he's an entrepreneur, and I definitely wasn't. I was like very traditional,
Mhm.
shy classroom teacher. Like, being an entrepreneur was definitely not on my cards if you said that to me 10 years ago. And then we had like this lunch with another entrepreneurial friend of his, and I was like explaining kind of what I wanted to do. Like, I want to write this book about little dude. And he said it so bluntly. He's like, no one is going to care about one book. How are you going to make an
Okay.
impact? One book is not going to do it. And so from that moment, I was like, okay, so I have to think bigger. So
Mhm.
it's not going to be one book. He's right. What will it be? Well, maybe it will be a series of books and a series of lesson plans. And that's sort of how I started off. I just said, okay, I'm going to pick 6 themes that I think I see that are missing in the classroom or I'm curious to teach. So there was kindness, manners, feelings, empathy, respect, and courage. And then I
Love
wrote
it.
books on each theme with Little Dude as the main character and lesson plans.
Wow. So yeah, so we're definitely gonna talk more about that, but it's so interesting as well that these qualities from for social and emotional learning weren't in the classroom before. I think people assumed that parents were teaching all of those skills, right? And now we see that it takes a village, right? Everybody needs to come together and work together to kind of build these skills in children. And so that leads me up to the buzzword of emotional intelligence. So how do you explain emotional intelligence to a parent who's like, what is it?
Okay, well, I think emotional intelligence is like a critical skill that plays a significant role in the overall being and success of children. So it's not just about academics, it's about bringing both the emotional and academic side together because they work in tandem. So at its core, emotional intelligence encompasses the ability to recognize and understand and manage one's emotions, as well as effectively navigating social interactions and empathizing with others. So for parents and teachers, fostering that emotional intelligence in children involves providing opportunities for them to identify and label their feelings, develop that self-awareness, regulate their emotions, and cultivate healthy relationships with peers and adults. And then through that sort of nurturing of those skills, children can better cope with things like stress, they can communicate more effectively, and they can really build those positive connections with others.
And so with World of Little Dude, do you like, is your big picture vision sort of to have the books and each program online as well, or to go into schools around the country with Little Dude? Or what is the sort of, how do you see it moving, even getting even bigger and bigger?
Well, right now I am starting sort of grassroots and locally.
Okay.
So that's doing professional development in person. So that's at universities with pre-service teachers, or that's going into schools, doing readings at libraries and preschools, and then hopefully offering my services to teach the humankind curriculum, or for schools to purchase the humankind curriculum that the teachers then use as a resource to teach SEL.
Okay, and if I were a teacher and I wanted to focus on, say, kindness, would it be better for me to have you come and train me with how to work with the books in class? Or is it just as easy for me to sort of purchase the curriculum that's linked to that book? Not the curriculum, but the sort of the lesson plans that are connected to that book, and then implement them in my class? Could
So
I
the
do either?
humankind curriculum is, yeah, I could do it in person, but ideally it's for teachers to take it and run with it. So the humankind curriculum is like a package. So there's professional development of how the teachers should use the program. So that's like a 30-minute video of like a how-to video, and a why, like why SEL, and then how the program works. And then they get access to the lesson plans, to the books, and there's worksheets that go along with each theme.
Okay, amazing.
There's coloring in books, there's assessments, there's circle time ideas. Like it's like not just lesson plans, it's like a whole package. And then there's like also a ways of connecting home and school, because I think that's really important. Like, how do we bridge that gap between home and school? So it's also giving parents the tools and the language. So we're teaching kindness this week. Here's some vocabulary that we're using in the classroom. Here are some kindness ideas that you could be doing at home. And that's sort of like, you can send that out as a newsletter at the beginning of each week, so parents know what you're doing in the classroom and can use further solidify those ideas at home. So you're working in partnership.
I love that. I think it's also an incredibly valuable tool for homeschoolers
Mm.
because, right, homeschoolers, their children don't always have as much of the social interaction, even though they do go out and they do socialize, because homeschooling is quite big in South Africa. And
Mm-hmm.
but the socially emotional side, that is not, I don't feel, something that often is specifically taught in terms of helping children cope with things like stress, things like, how do you, manage conflict or something if you have there's something going on with you and your friend, things to that effect. And I think as schools start shifting, I don't know what you've seen with where you are, but have you noticed any shifts in schooling in terms of other types of more non-traditional schools popping up around your area?
Yeah, I would say that the pandemic accelerated the homeschool market. I think before, the homeschool market, it's like, oh, it's for religious people or for people who are like very crunchy granola. Like there was like kind of
Yes,
like not a stigma, but like a stereotype.
there
But I
was,
think
yeah.
pandemic really exposed a lot of the cracks within the traditional schooling. And I think parents it was like a wake up call for many parents. And I think that now homeschooling is like an option where, because parents want choice. Like sometimes in
Yeah.
America, it's like where you live, where you're zoned, that's where you're going to school. So you don't really have any choice. Whereas homeschool, I think, opens up that choice. And I think a lot more people are doing homeschool. In America, they've got charter schools. So that's something that I think is growing. There's a lot of politics and around charter schools too. That's another.
Online schools too. There's a lot of online schools that have grown in popularity
Right,
since the pandemic, since I think parents saw that their child could actually learn online
right.
and was okay with
Yeah.
it. That's definitely, I think,
Yeah. And I think
something.
parents who also okay, I don't actually need to be in my office. What kind of lifestyle can we have? Maybe we are going to move locations or travel. It opens up people's options, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I
absolutely.
think private schools too, I think they've always been like a big part. And I think maybe even more so because people are disillusioned with public school systems.
Yeah, no, here, private schools are
Yeah.
a huge thing, because I could even say in my area, I mean, there's 7 private schools that I could within a 10-kilometer radius.
Yeah.
So it's definitely popular. I think parents would, love anything that could help their children with this sort of, with their social and emotional learning, definitely, because kids are struggling out there with it. So can you give me an example of maybe 1 or 2 of the activities that might go along with the books that you particularly maybe really like, or you've seen that like works really well, or just, yeah, to give us a bit of a feel for it?
Sure, I can. So there's 9 themes, which are kindness, feelings, manners, empathy, respect, growth mindset, courage, friendship, and meditation. So maybe I'll give you an example of, say, how I incorporate. You don't need a therapy dog to do these lessons,
Okay,
but
that's probably a good thing.
yeah, yeah. So I can give you a lesson. Say, for example, so I do this lesson. This is about saying kind and unkind words and
Okay.
their effect, like how, because that kind of can be an abstract concept in a way. Some of SEL can be abstract for the early childhood learner. So how can you make it more concrete? So one way is I do this lesson about unkind words. So I have a tube of toothpaste and I sort of squeeze out the contents onto a plate and talk about when we say unkind words and what effect that has. And then once the toothpaste is out, and maybe the kids will be working in small groups, they'll all have their own little tube and a little toothpick. And then I'll say, okay, now that you've squeezed it out, can you try and put the toothpaste back into the tube? And that's almost impossible to really
Yeah.
do that. Really
Yes.
tricky. And so you're illustrating that this kind of serves as a metaphor for unkind words. So just like squeezing out toothpaste, saying hurtful words is easy, but once they're spoken, even if you say sorry, you've still said them. It's hard to take unkind word back. So really this activity encourages students to be sort of more mindful of their words and emphasize the importance of being kind and empathetic when you interact with your peers. So that's kind of like a concrete way of doing an activity around
Yeah.
kindness.
Yeah, no, definitely. I also like that you've included meditation, because I'm a huge believer that incorporating breath work into the regular practice of a classroom can make a big difference. So I don't know, did you ever do any kind of meditations with your kids at all, or how did it
Yeah.
go?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a book called Brain Vacation, A Guide to Meditation. That's one of the books. And I teach the kids about their breath and how they can use their breath and different breathing techniques. I've written 3 meditations that are audios.
Oh, cool.
And I use meditation a lot, even in my own kids. Like we listen to a meditation every night before we go to bed. Like there's amazing podcasts that offer free meditations.
Yeah.
So I find them really helpful.
Yeah, me too. I feel they've definitely calmed me down so much. I wish I had not that they've calmed, not that I was like overly stressed or anything, but well, I mean, when I was teaching, I could be overly stressed, but I feel like in moments of stress, I can handle it so much better. Like since
Mm-hmm.
I have started meditating, I wish I had known about incorporating it in the beginning of my teaching career, because I think I would have taught all my classes how to do it. Or maybe
Yeah.
not meditating, but the breath work definitely that comes with.
Yeah. I think just doing like, for example, at the beginning of the year, you teach the kids like one or two simple breathing techniques. Like there's the box breathing where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for
Yeah,
4. And, you teach that to the kids. And then that's part of your classroom culture. Okay, after lunch, I see everyone's like
exactly.
a little, um, has a lot of energy. Like, let's do some box breathing. And then you can pull that, like that, as a teacher, you want to create a toolbox. And as well at home, you want a toolbox. So when they're, your child or the children in your class, you can see that they're struggling or having a moment, you can pull out one of those tools. Will the tool work in the moment? Maybe, maybe not, but at least it's there for you to use. And the children, once you've done it repetitiously, then that's something that's gonna, you can use in the moment.
Yeah, no, what definitely. I have seen it work with, children and students. So I highly recommend it for teachers and for parents to learn
Mm.
it and practice it at home and teach their children. One thing I want to look at this year as well is the tapping, the face tapping.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that seems quite interesting. Have you tried that at all or?
I haven't tried it, but I definitely have heard about it, but I haven't tried it personally.
Yeah,
But I think it'd
awesome.
be a really fun activity to do with kids because it's like a lot of sensory input and it's fun. So it could be a really great
Exactly.
thing to do with your kids.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Okay, so from the perspective of being a writer, like because I know there are teachers out there who are thinking of starting writing and thinking of maybe starting their own book, and because every day a new story like comes up in the classroom
Mhm.
with someone.
Mhm.
So what advice would you have for any teachers who might be thinking of starting their career as a writer?
I would say like embrace your unique perspective and experiences from working with children. Like you have firsthand knowledge of working with kids. So that gives you like this valuable insight into what would resonate with educators and parents and even children themselves. I would start by like identifying topics or themes that they're passionate about or have
Mhm.
expertise in and sort of focus on that. So whether it's like whatever it is, fostering social and emotional skills,
Yeah.
bullying, whatever it may be, like what's your passion, what's your experience, what's your expertise. Um, yeah, I would say start with that. What's your passion? What's your expertise? What do you want to share? What do you want the end user, who is the child, to walk away with? What's the lesson? What's the knowledge, like nugget of knowledge that you want that child to take away? Um, yeah.
Yeah. And did you like when you started writing, did you do like the whole book in like over like 3 days, let's say, and you just put yourself in your room and started writing, or did you commit to just 20 minutes a day? Like I've just got to do 20 minutes. I got to work on this book for 20 minutes to yeah, how is it like in the beginning when you started writing?
Yeah, I guess everyone has their own unique way of working. So it's kind of like whatever works for you. But I had like a plan. So I like to work with plans and skeletons, I guess. It's like storyboarding in a way. So it's like, okay, these are the themes that I want to teach. These are the characters that are going to be in the books. This is where the books are going to take place. And
Okay.
then for each book, maybe I had like a beginning, middle, and end, and then I just wrote. Like I had one summer, I was pregnant with my first child. And so that was giving me the drive because I was like, I have to get these books done, these 6 books
Right.
done. before I give birth, because then once that happens, like it's all over Red Rover. Like, I'm not going to be in the state of mind to be writing. So you do need to be in that space where you do have time and quiet and to really think and what you want to write.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. And yeah, or even if you're going away somewhere, maybe like
Mm.
book yourself if you can, book yourself in a weekend away and be like, okay, I'm just gonna, sit here and write in my like haven. Um,
Yes.
so with all of the topics, do you feel that certain areas of social and emotional learning should be taught first? So if teachers bought the whole set or the whole program, do
Mhm.
you have them starting in a specific order? And is there any, or can it be done in any order?
I guess you can do it in any order, but for my curriculum specifically, I start with the Book of Kindness because that's the underlying message of Big World of Little Dude. It's being kind. And the first book is about Little Dude's journey as a therapy dog and why it's important to be kind. So I start with kindness and then I go to feelings. I think teaching kids about emotions and feelings is like a good place to start because you're teaching them about like self-regulation
Yeah.
and you're laying the groundwork for like managing those emotions, which is really important part of SEL.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like certain, then you also give them the vocabulary to know how to speak about their feelings, which can definitely
Mhm.
link into the later books, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I would think so, especially, yeah, with manners. I'm just thinking it's so important to give them the vocabulary first and then move forward. And tell me, Cara, can people find you online? Is the best place at World of Little Dude, or are you anywhere else on social media?
Sure. So I am on Instagram at World of Little Dude. I have a website, worldoflittledude.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn, which you can find me on as Cara Zeles.
Okay, amazing. That's cool. And with your own writing journey, are there any books you recommend for personal or professional development?
Sure. I have three book recommendations. One is The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People
Oh, I
by
love that
Steve
one.
Covey. He offers these like timeless principles for personal and professional effectiveness. I like Mindset, the New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. She's
Mm-hmm.
like the one that sort of started the growth mindset movement. So, I really like her message. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important for kids also to have a growth mindset, which is why I talk about that in the book about like talking, your inner dialogue being positive and rather saying like I can't, but I can, or I'm working on. So like changing that language in the kid's head. I think growth mindset's really important because I can even say like, say for example, my daughter, she really hates maths and she just kept saying, I hate math, I hate math, I'm not good at math. And I said to her, when you start saying something over and over again, starts to become true.
Mm.
So instead of saying, I hate maths, I can't do it, you can say, I'm working on my maths. I'm getting better. And then I had a conversation with her teacher and I said, look, I want to start changing the language of how Grace talks about math because I think it's an unhealthy mindset. And so her teacher's on the same page too. So
Nice.
she's using the same language. So I think growth mindset's really
I just want to say
important.
one thing about that book with mindset because I've also read that book, and one thing it's funny that the opposite is also true. So she outlines, and I'm pretty sure she's only got the one book. I mean, you could be talking about the second one, but I think it's just the one. But she outlines a story about a girl who is exceptionally talented at violin.
Mhm.
And when she went to a special school for music, and the teacher wanted to help her grow as a violinist, she didn't know how to process it and she shut down because she's always been told that she's the best and she doesn't need any improvements and she's so good.
Mhm.
But there's always room to try something new or try something a little bit differently or listen to the expert. And it took a long time for her to really come back to this point that she could grow, she could get better, because she's always been told she was the best. So it's funny because that's the narrative that has been pushed on her, that she has formed for herself. So it's the same thing, right? If you never really say that you're 100%, there's always that room for growth. Like that growth mindset and how you speak to yourself is so critical.
Yes, and also realizing that your brain is a muscle,
Yes.
and that it just can always get stronger with more information. You're always learning. I'm learning every day.
Oh, me
Don't ever.
too. I love learning. Okay, cool. And your
Yeah.
third book, sorry?
Was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Yeah. So
I
I really,
just listened to that book. Oh my gosh, we're so
yeah,
aligned.
yeah. I really like he's great.
What resonated with you in that book? Like what, can you pick out a moment that you liked or something that you remember that you enjoyed, that you
I just
learned?
think he offers really great insights and practices for living in the present moment.
Yeah. No,
Mm.
me too. One of mine was, if you, with the power of now is if you experience, if you're dealing with, trauma or pain and you're living in the pain body, that you want to try and speak to someone to get, to move past it so that, because it is just, almost like he doesn't call it like a figment of your imagination, but it's as though you're living in it. You have to work on living in it temporarily so that you can move into the present moment, because that's what happened before. It's not affecting you now. So I always think of that when, at least, focus on the positive side, maybe of what happened or something that you can take from that. But I highly recommend The Power of Now. I actually listened to it as an audiobook, and it's very calming because he is the one who narrates it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
it's
love that. I
definitely,
love audiobooks.
yeah, me too. Me too. And so speaking of mindset, like how do you move yourself from a negative mindset into a positive mindset if you find yourself there?
I think sort of acknowledging that you are going to have, like, life isn't just one rainbows and unicorns. Like, you are going to have negative thoughts and emotions, but kind of like don't judge that. Don't judge those moments and those thoughts. Um, so I think like practicing gratitude can really help
Mm-hmm.
with that. So like taking a few moments that even if you're going through a bad moment, try and refocus by going, okay, well, I have like so much love in my home and I have such amazing friendships and my children are like such a joy. So even if you're going through bad moments, try and ground yourself in truth, like the positive truth
Mm.
are in your life despite what you're feeling. So I find that that can be quite helpful. Um, yeah, and then like if things are going wrong, sort of focusing on how you can grow from that experience. So even
Okay.
though it's bad or something has happened that is making you unhappy or whatever it is, it's like, well, how can I grow from this experience? What can I learn from this experience? So when it comes up next time, I can approach it in a different way.
That's valuable. That's, yeah, no, that's so powerful, because I think if people could learn to do that instead of just the negative self-talk, oh, I'm useless, I'm stupid, I can't do it, which is how a lot of people will go with something like that, rather be like, okay, this is what happened. This is how I felt when it happened. There it's certain things right now are out of my control, but my response and my attitude towards it are within my control. So like, what can I do to make it better next time? That's definitely, yeah, I agree with that. And I think that has changed the way I live my life a lot as well, is starting to do, like doing that. Cause I've been doing that for a long time, but I never did that when I was younger.
Yeah,
And
definitely didn't do that when I was younger. And also just like when you fail or when things don't go right, it's like a teachable moment. And that's kind of
Yeah.
what I teach my kids too. And as a teacher, you can teach that in the classroom. Okay, so you made a mistake. Life is made up of mistakes, and that's how you learn and grow. So rather than seeing it as a negative thing, see it as an opportunity for growth.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. What is one piece of advice that you would give to yourself as a young teacher? Either a first year teacher or a young teacher, first couple of years of teaching?
I would say two things. One would be like prioritizing self-care and maintaining that healthy work-life balance, because teaching can be so demanding. I remember when I first started teaching, I would get home at like whatever time. Whenever I would get home, I would just collapse. I would
Yeah.
collapse. It was so exhausting, like physically, like you're on your feet all day, you're constantly talking all day. Like there's just so much going on. It can be like quite exhausting. So just making sure that, you're taking care of yourself and not realizing that like, oh, this is so selfish that I'm doing self-care. But I think it will help you like have a better, it'll be necessary for your well-being and
Mm,
effectiveness as a teacher. So just like carving out those times that doing activities that recharge and replenish your energy. So whether that's going for a walk or exercising or
yeah.
whatever you do to unwind, make sure that you're doing that. And also, I would say classroom management. That is like one thing that I would get my head around before going into the classroom, and seeking out more experienced teachers in your
Mhm.
school and observing them, what they do for classroom management, asking for classroom management tips, and having like whole a lot of tools in your toolbox for classroom management, because I think that can be quite overwhelming for a first time teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, as when you go in as a student teacher, it should actually be mandatory that you sit in everybody's classes for like
Mm-hmm.
half a day, right? Every teacher at the school, just so you can see what works and what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually start to build your own toolkit of strategies for classroom management, because until you see it, like you don't, once you become a teacher, there's no time to go and sit in someone else's class and watch what they're doing. And the other teachers probably wouldn't want that anyway. But you yourself then have to figure it out on your own, or by going to, other teachers and saying what works for you. But if, as a new student teacher, if you are allowed to go and sit in anyone's class, I feel like you could actually get some good strategies there.
Definitely. Or it'd be great if like the school provided like an experienced teacher and they help all the new year teachers. That would be great to have that in school, like a point of
Yeah.
reference in the school and be like, go to so and so, they're going to be your like reflection teacher. And because like sometimes as a new teacher, like you don't want to ask for help because you're like, oh, I want to make sure I've got this. This is my first job. I want to make a good impression. You are apprehensive to ask for help. But I think if schools sort of had, like, we know new teaching is hard. Like we've got this teacher to help you through those moments, to ask questions. Maybe you have a monthly check-in with that person. I mean, that would be great to have that in schools.
Yeah, it would definitely. It would be great even if that was like someone's actual job. Like they
Yes.
were, right? Like
That's
they
a
weren't
that's a
also a
dream.
teacher. They were just in
Yeah,
an office waiting for other teachers to come and say, this is where I'm struggling. And you're like, okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out.
yeah, yeah, it would
That
be
would be
great. I think some
amazing.
schools, I mean, I guess depends where you are. I think a lot of some schools have amazing resources to support new teachers, but I would say that's not the norm.
Yeah, and it's always different in different districts, right? And I know they do. I've met teachers that are, like I've met some people where in their district they do have mentor teachers, but if the
Mhm.
mentor teacher is also teaching, it can sometimes be difficult to want to disturb them for too long because they're also busy, right? But if the mentor teacher has their own space and you can go to them anytime, I mean, that would be ideal,
Yeah, that would
I
be
would think.
amazing.
Yeah. And Cara, speaking of gratitude, what three things are you grateful for today?
I would say for my family and friends, and like the people and the love that I have in my life, for my health and well-being.
Nice.
It's really important because I had the flu last week and it was horrendous. And just you don't
Oh,
realize until you're sick
yeah.
how debilitating it is. But just so happy to be healthy and just opportunities for growth, always learning, always listening. So I'm grateful for having those opportunities.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Well, I'm so grateful for you being able to come on today, Cara, because I know that you were sick last week, and I'm just glad that you're feeling so much better. And yeah, you look great. And I really appreciate you for what you're doing to help not just the students, but subsequently like the teachers and the parents that I know are going to love your program because it's just teaching such valuable skills to children. So thank you so much. And I really just wish you so much success and prosperity as you move forward. Yeah. So have a fantastic, year ahead.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing Big World of Little Dude and what we do with your community. And take care and all the best for your endeavors too.
Thank you.